Namaste. So in the last episode, I recounted the meeting of the beautiful couple, the prince and the demigoddess, the half demigoddess. So let's take the narration up from there. The prince was filled with joy and returned with her to his own capital. Muktachuda, his father, was also very pleased and ordered festivities in the kingdom. He then had the marriage performed ceremoniously, and the loving couple passed a very happy honeymoon in the palace, in forest retreats, and on sandy beaches. So that's actually the end of chapter 2. Now, chapter 3. But the infatuated prince noticed that Hemalekha was not as amorous as himself. Feeling that she was always unresponsive, he asked her in private, "My dear, how is it you are not as attentive to me as I am to you? Thou fairest of girls, radiant with smiles, how is it that you are never keen on seeking pleasure or enjoying it? Are not these pleasures to your taste? You look indifferent even during the greatest pleasures. How can I be happy if your interest is not awakened? Even when I'm close to you, your mind seems to be elsewhere. When spoken to, you do not seem to listen. As I hold you in close embrace for a long while, you seem unconscious of me, and then ask me, 'Lord, when did you come?' None of the carefully planned arrangements seem to interest you, and you do not take part in them. When I turn away from you, you remain with your eyes closed, and so you continue whenever I approach you. Tell me how I can derive pleasure with nothing but an artist's model, which is what you are, seeing your indifference to all enjoyments. What does not please you cannot please me either. I am always looking to you, trying to please you like a lily looking up at the moon." There's a note. Kumuda, a certain lily, blossoms only in the night and is therefore said to be the beloved of the moon, as the lotus blossoming in the day is said to be the beloved of the sun. So then he continues, "Speak, dear. Why are you like this? You are dearer to me than even life. I adjure you. Speak, and so relieve my mind." Now, this is why I titled this episode The Marriage Bed. Not to be provocative, but because this is a universal experience. It certainly parallels every relationship I've ever had. And from what I hear, it's a very, very common phenomenon. The woman does everything to attract the man, works very hard to please him. And then as soon as the commitment is made, as soon as the man is locked in, committed to the relationship, the woman's sex desire seems to evaporate. It may happen quickly or it may happen slowly, but it does happen, doesn't it? Well, keep in mind that this girl is not an ordinary girl. She's an incarnation of the goddess. And that's why she's described as having a crescent moon on her forehead. And actually, in some sense, every woman is an incarnation of the goddess. So what happens in a relationship is that the goddess is acting through the woman to teach the man, to elevate him, to raise him to a higher status. I mean, let's analyze this. Where's Hemachuda? What platform, what level of conceptual awareness is he on? Pashupati, isn't it? I mean, Pashu-vāda. He's an animal. He's just trying to please his senses. Yes, of course, externally, he observes the religious formalities like marriage and so on, and rewarding the priests and all of these types of ritualistic observances that the kshatriyas did. But his actual motivation is his own selfish pleasure. I mean, yeah, he thinks he's in love, right? But if there's any problem with sense gratification, it becomes an issue. So actually, he's on the pashu stage. He's an animal. Now, so what is his bride going to do? She's going to withdraw, trying to provoke him to come to a higher platform of awareness. Look, I'm not just a doll. I'm not just an artist's model looking pretty. It's not just a show. This is not just an external thing either. It's not just about the senses. It's about something higher than that. And you have to come out of your ignorance. You have to come out of your conditioning to just seek your own pleasure. The prince is still very young. He's probably still a teenager. So he's not very mature. His father is liberated, probably watching all this with great insight and understanding. But he doesn't get it. He's bewildered. He's in the dark. Why is she withdrawing from me? Why doesn't she enjoy sense pleasure? I mean, we were so much in love in the forest, and now she's mine, but she's not mine. And so this is the lesson, actually, that we cannot make another person a possession or an object. People are not objects. They're subjects. Each person has consciousness at the root, even though they may appear to be in a body, or they may speak from the locus of the body. Still, they are not the body. They're never the body, even if they think they are. So the actual truth is, you're always dealing with another consciousness just like your own. And in a relationship, what that means is you cannot transgress the boundaries of that person's consciousness. If they desire certain activities to enjoy or whatever, fine. But if they don't, if they're detached, then you can't push beyond that. What does it say? Your right to punch ends at the tip of my nose. Your right to sense gratification ends when you contact my senses. Because I have a sovereign right over my senses, my body, my mind, and so on. As a consciousness, as an expression of the Supreme. Therefore, you cannot force anything on me. You cannot coerce me. And if you do, this is very sinful. So we see this spectacle in life of people getting into relationships and then discovering, oh, wait a minute, the deal that I thought I had is not the deal that I'm getting. Isn't it? And this is common to all kinds of relationships, not only marriage or lover and beloved, but business relationships, friendships, and so on and so on. That a promise is made, or at least seems to be made in the beginning, and then as things go along, one discovers, well, actually this promise is false. And whether it's due to my own illusion or to the other person's intransigence or dishonesty, that's another matter. But what it means is that this material world is the Maya. Maya means that which is not. So any promise made in this world is going to be false. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Nobody can promise, for example, to be in love for the rest of their life. To love, honor, and obey till death do us part. Who can keep such a promise? It's beyond human ability. It's not practical. It's not feasible. It's a nice idea. Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. And maybe 1 or 2% of marriages actually last that long. The rest of them just kind of dry up and blow away. The fire goes out. The passion cools. And even in business, for example, you can make it very clear going into a business deal that these are the conditions and these are my expectations, and yeah, sign on the dotted line. And then you get into it a little bit and you find out, wait a minute, this is not happening the way I expected. So what to do? What to do is to take a proper attitude that this is the world of Maya. It's an illusion. It's just an appearance. It's not real. The only thing that's real in this consciousness, in this world, is consciousness and God. So therefore, the actual platform of reality is God consciousness. To pursue a relationship, not with other people or the material world or your senses or your body, but with the Supreme in whatever form that you conceive it. This is Ajata-vāda. See, there's a duality. I exist, I am real, and God exists, God is real. Now, I don't know about all this other stuff. It seems to be real, but then it's constantly changing. At any time that we observe the world, its trend, its tendency, it's toward dissolution and death, isn't it? That's true of our bodies. That's true of any kind of physical objects. They come into existence at a certain point, exist for a specific time, and then they go away or change. So, of course, this is true in relationships as well. The relationship has a beginning at which it seems to have great promise, and there's, big hopes and expectations. And then as time goes on, it gradually devolves, and finally it's over. And this is karma. This is also entropy. Entropy is the tendency of all systems of energy to gradually reduce in their potential until they reach the ground potential. You see? So once something is brought into being by the process of becoming. Now, I've gone deeply into the process of becoming in earlier videos, so I'm not going to go into it now. You can look it up, starting with the Foundation series. That once something is spun into existence, a vortex of energy, of course it's going to radiate that energy out into the surrounding world until gradually it slows down and becomes nothing. So this is the story of every relationship, every object, everything in this world. And we cannot change that. It's a universal law. So it shouldn't be surprising to the prince, although it is, because of his ignorance. He's finding out the hard way that what we expect to happen, the promises that we think we've been made, aren't guaranteed because they're illusory. A promise is something about the future, and the future doesn't exist. Only the present exists. So when the so-called future finally arrives, of course it's different, because what was present is now past, and that promise or that statement that was made is now invalid. It's untrue. It doesn't apply. So this happens to us again and again, doesn't it? We get a certain idea, like a snapshot of the physical world, and we go off in our mind. And Buddha calls this papancha. We create a whole waterfall of thoughts based on that picture. And then we have a certain expectation that this is the way it's going to be, or this is what's going to happen. And then we come back later to that same relationship or that same person or that same thing or whatever, and we find it's different. Well, of course it's different. Like, who was it? One of the Greek philosophers said, you cannot put your foot in the same river twice, because the river is always flowing. Time is always passing. Things are always changing. That's just the way it is. That's the first of the three qualities of the material existence taught by the Buddha. Impermanence. Because of impermanence, everything is unsatisfactory. That's the second. And because everything is unsatisfactory, it doesn't match our expectations. Therefore, it's not self. Now, these are the three qualities of material existence. Impermanence, suffering or disappointment or whatever, and not self. So because of this, this material world is always going to disappoint us. It's always going to let us down. It's never going to meet our expectations, because that's the nature of things. It's Maya. So now, this poor prince, he's married to Maya, as every man who gets somehow entangled in a relationship. And he's discovering these things. And how will he take it? He's just now bringing up the subject, the first inquiry. So we'll see in the next episode how he handles it. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.